Okay, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone here once I made it. I just flew in from La Ronge there. I was down there for the summer games. Went to watch a couple of our athletes play. Our U17 soccer team won 4-2 this morning. 7 of the 9 players are from Waterhen for MLTC, so we had a good showing. So yeah, we're here today just to talk about the land designation. This is something we started probably about 4 or 5 years back. I think Kelly Fiddler was on the ECDev Corp that time when we're looking into this. Right now we're trying to build a new store in the community. Our current store is currently falling apart. If you have been there in the last couple of weeks, you know what I'm talking about. So we got some plans drawn up. We designated some land, so we're trying to make that land into commercial land so we could use it for the store and get petroleum products in there. It'll help us get a loan for the project and get the development started. So with that, I'll just like to thank our ECDev Corp, Devin Fiddler, for setting this up and having our lawyers here, Dusty, so he'll go over the presentation. If you guys have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Do you want me to use this, or can I?
It's for the online.
Okay, so thanks very much. My name is Dusty Irwine. I'm a partner with McKercher Law Office. We've been retained to assist on the designation vote. I'd encourage you all to, before we probably get started, to grab one of the maps so you know kind of what's going on. You know what land we're talking about. So this is a single lot on the home reserve. So if you do have that map, you can see it on there, being a single lot, lot 6. Thank you. I have one of those too. So. Oh, I have this. I have this, Joyce.
Yeah, but if you want to show them.
Oh, okay, good.
It's in the information package, not what they're handing out.
Okay. Within the information packages as well that were mailed out, there was a map, colored map, that you would be able to refer to as well. Okay, so I believe everybody should have one. Maybe just the gentleman there, Devin, when you're that fella too. So, as you guys know, there's 3 information sessions happening on this designation. Each one is very much the same as the next. There's nothing that changes from meeting to meeting. So the first of which is, of course, here tonight. And then again tomorrow in Waterhen at what we've called the blue building. I've been told everybody knows what that is. So, and then again next week, next Thursday on the 22nd in Edmonton at the River Cree Resort. As well tonight with the AV set up, as we're able to record it and post it up. I believe the Nation will have it up on their platform. So, and then lastly, the actual vote is scheduled for September 18th. and that'll be again at the Blue Building on Waterhen Lake First Nation, and the hours there 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay. So, just to sort of get into this, and hopefully address some of the concerns folks may have. By all means, it's a small group tonight, so if you have a question, you know, we can deal with it as they come. You don't need to wait necessarily to the end. So, so first and foremost, we like to make it clear that the land that we're talking about, Lot 6, there's nothing being sold there. Lot 6 isn't being sold. That remains reserve land and will, regardless of the decision on the designation vote. So the term of the designation, you'll note in the information package that they're looking to do a 99-year designation. Don't confuse that with a 99-year lease. I'm not sure I've ever seen a lease that long before. Usually they're 5 years, right? But the actual designation, so you don't have to keep doing the process over and over, will last for 99 years. There are some nations in Saskatchewan that have been doing this so long that we've now seen renewals of those designations coming up. So we do have the map that everybody should have. So again, that is specific, only Lot 6 is being dealt with. And what the nation's asking is for permission from the membership or support from the membership to be able to lease that lot 6 or a portion of it for commercial and retail purposes. So including a gas and service station. So I know that there's some plans attached to that, as well as a convenience store, so some grocery. And we also have left it open for any institutional, educational, or recreational purposes. We deliberately don't have industrial purposes or agriculture purposes in there, just based on what we understand from the land. It's not very compatible for, you know, industrial purposes, and not necessarily big enough for any ag purposes. So, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This land you're leasing, these people, other people are building a store on our reserve?
No, nothing's happening yet. So the.
Well, this is my point. Why would you guys be making a deal to lease land for $1 a year or whatever it is? Why would you lease land? Why wouldn't you wait until the land claims are done, have a talk with the people, and say, you know what, if everybody coughed up $10,000 each, we could have our own gas station, our own grocery store, our own stuff, and we own it, and not anybody else coming onto our reserve and taking over stuff. You know, this is really, you know what that store they got now? Somebody else owns that, why are we always giving out money to somebody else for our property, our land?
Yeah, that's fair. And the intentions here is that you own this, and it's your corporation, it's your business. There's no outsiders, so to speak, coming in to be involved in this at all. Okay. As far as, you know, construction goes, I don't know what the intent is there down the road. But as I go through this, you'll kind of understand how the leasing chain works and how the First Nation remains the sole beneficiary of it.
Aren't you the same guy who came to the reserve and did the thing for the cows and plows?
No, I'm not.
Well, you guys are switching to a different law firm, what's happening here? Because that guy was sitting there saying, oh, this about the cows and plows, and it's a great deal, but there's clauses in there that were written that stated that if we took that money, that was it, we're cut off, there's absolutely nothing after that. Now, why would people come to a presentation on our reserve with that in there?
Well, to me, I have no idea about your cows and plows. I'm not retained to assist in it, so I can't speak to that, unfortunately. This process would be different than your cows and plows, though, for sure.
Clause is written, because that's the problem with working with making a deal with the white man. They're always pulling something on us. Oh, look, you signed this. Look, you signed this.
Yeah, and if you just allow me to go through it, you'll notice it's a lot different. It's not a settlement like in the cows and plows would be. This is an internal process that's governed through the Indian Act, actually, is where it comes from.
So what we'll do is we'll hold for questions at the end so Dusty can finish going through the presentation. And we do need and ask everybody to speak into the mic, because we do have some people online and they can't hear us if we're not speaking into the mic. And it's also being recorded, so the recording won't capture your comments if you don't speak into the mic. Thank you. Go ahead, Dusty.
Okay, thanks.
Told me that before they started talking.
All right, so further background on this. So in this particular designation, there's only reserve land that you're looking at for designation purposes. Again, that land's strictly on your home reserve, so that lot 6. And the reason why this has come up is there's an identified need for commercial opportunities within your community, and you also have a need to provide further services to Waterhen members within the community. So that is somewhat of your background as to where this all came from. There is a spelling mistake on this next slide. I'll let you know right away. Oh no, never mind, sorry. So what is a designation vote? So reserve land is held by His Majesty, which is essentially a fancy way to say Canada. So Canada holds the land pursuant to your treaty, all right, and that reserve land's been set aside for the collective use of Waterhen members, okay? So Canada, or His Majesty, pardon me, is the legal title holder of all reserve lands in Canada. So that includes, you know, all of your neighbors, Waterhen, all of the land is held on title by His Majesty. That land's administered as reserve lands pursuant to the Indian Act, where Waterhen is a beneficial owner of your reserve lands. So designation vote of a band is an Indian Act procedure. All right, so under Section 38 sub 2 and 39.1 of the Indian Act, they do provide a process through which a band can authorize His Majesty to grant a lease or other interest in reserve land with the consent of band council. So that's this whole process in and of itself. A designation vote is a vote by the electors of Waterhen to allow leasing to take place on Waterhen land. So the process again is the same if you were to do, you know, further lands down the road, but ultimately this is the main point here, and the power is all held by the electors. If you guys vote no, then the process, it ends there. If you vote yes, then of course it proceeds further. So under the Indian Act, it limits your ability to grant leases and other interests in reserve lands. So, you know, some of you may be familiar with the certificate of possession, permits. Those are all functions of the Indian Act. And the designation process is the process by which you can bring some of those limitations out and do a little bit more with that land. So as a result of this vote here, the members must approve by a yes vote and authorize His Majesty to enter into a lease or other interest. So that is essentially what the designation is the community approves and directs Canada to enter into a lease with an entity of the nation's choosing. So again, just by way of background, a lease is essentially a contract that gives one person the right to use or occupy land, and that's generally exclusively for a period of time in exchange for rent, for money. So pretty simple definition there of what a lease is. So designation can occur, and they can occur for both reserve lands, which is what's happening here, and just for information, if you were to purchase lands through your TLE or whatever have you, you can also go through a designation process for those lands, even though they may not be reserve land. It's not necessarily important for this, given that we're looking at strictly home reserve lands. So we viewed the designation documents. You should have all received them in the mail out, and that's essentially the instructions to His Majesty to Canada. And again, it's important to note that the land is not being sold. It's only being leased for the purposes set out in the designation document. So if you recall the purposes of, I believe, commercial retail purposes, including gas station, service station, convenience store, institutional, educational, and recreational purposes. So, it's a fairly tight window that you've put together as far as purposes go. If a designation is approved by the members, okay, Canada may enter into leases or other interests with the consent of band council. Okay, so even though you may vote, the nation may vote yes, there's still another layer there where you need to have the consent of the council to move forward with the leasing opportunity. So the land status, it's important to note that the land status is maintained. I think. Are you able to click it one forward for me? Oh yeah, there we go, perfect, thank you. So again, we keep driving this home, not selling land. My experience has been, over the last 9 years of doing this, that there's a strong misconception that you're actually selling the land. And that's fair. I mean, maybe the communication in those communities wasn't the greatest, so we like to ensure that no matter what, we make it clear that land isn't being sold. It still stays as reserve land. It doesn't lose any of its status or anything like that. Again, designation does allow for certain leases, and that's granted on reserve land, which would otherwise not be permitted under the Indian Act. So some examples of other interests, aside from leases, you have easements. So, I think most folks are probably familiar with that. And then mortgages, loans where a lease is used as security. So those would be interests. Band council's involvement. So band council still has involvement regarding the management of those lands, and they can only authorize specific activities to be conducted on the reserve land, so long as they are consistent with the designation document. So again, those purposes we talk about, council can only authorize activities within those purposes. They can't deviate from that and grant, a lease and something else. All right, so under the Indian Act, designation vote of band members can be held with respect to land that is part of an existing reserve. So that's the designation piece here. While it retains its reserve status, certain sections of the Indian Act will no longer apply to designated lands. Okay, so those are the sections, removing them allows you to lease those to a third-party entity. Perhaps what I'll do is I'm going to jump ahead and then I guess I'll jump back. So just to help clarify a couple things, I'll jump back after. All right, so the specific issues here with respect to this is rent. Okay, so that's the economic advantage here. So rent paid under a head lease to Canada on behalf of Waterhen qualifies as Indian monies. Okay, so any of the money that is paid directly through the head lease, so Canada leases it down to your economic development company, so your Waterhen entity, okay? And the money that's paid from here to here, that's considered Indian monies, and that goes to Ottawa and sits in your revenue trust account. So that's, you know, the old way of doing things. Now the big thing here is that we're permitted to lease the land from His Majesty to your new economic development company for $1. Okay, so the money that your ec dev company pays upwards, a simple dollar, that goes into your revenue trust account. Okay, now where the real advantage comes from is that once this entity has that lease, they can maybe lease it off to other entities. So where the purposes of your gas station, that whole lot 6 will be included on your head lease, and that would go to Waterhen Lake Development Corporation or something of that nature. And then your ec dev company may lease off a portion of that lot to, you know, Joe's convenience store, you know, member or whatever. And that rent that gets paid has to be fair market value. Okay, so everything that comes up has to be fair market value. And the advantage there is that the money that they receive doesn't go any further, it stops here. So that's where you start being able to utilize the profits and economic advantages for the nation, as opposed to running it back up to Canada and then having to deal with the rules around your revenue trust account. There's very little rules attached to that, right? I mean, the rules are what you guys make them essentially. But any of that money that comes up for rents, that's up to the nation to administer that. Okay, so I know I jumped ahead and I'll go back and sort of fill in the holes here, but I think that's important just for you to be able to see that you know, hey, we're not actually getting rid of the land. We're trying to actually keep money out of Canada's pocket is really what's happening here. No more rent going right to Canada for them to, you know, handle. Now I can stop at our ec dev corp, and whatever you guys decide to do with it, so be it, right? But ultimately, it's a lot more financial freedom from that. So I assume right now the store that's there, I don't know if it would pay rent or not. I don't know the history. It's probably been there for a while. But if it is, I mean, it's ultimately money owed to Waterhen that flows upwards.
I think.
You want this one?
Oh yeah, that's good now. Yeah, I can just comment on that. Right now, where the current store is, it is leased on provincial land. So it's half on provincial land and half on the First Nation. So we do have to pay a lease to the parks, essentially. So then once we move it over under the ec dev, it will go to us instead of to the ministry.
Okay, yeah, so there you go, right? So I assume that's Park Saskatchewan or whatever it happens to be, the ministry, was taking that rent, right? So I know that, you know, it's hard to sort of fathom that that's the case, but that's all part of the systemic issues attached to, you know, the Indian Act and everything else. But for the purposes of our discussion today, this chart is pretty handy to help you sort of better understand what's happening. So I'm going to jump back here. Okay, so it's a single ballot vote, all right? Again, we're talking about a lease, having permission to lease up to 99 years. Again, that's so you don't have to come back and repeat this process. And again, those purposes, we've made it pretty clear: commercial, retail, gas, convenience, institutional education, recreation. So again, very straightforward, signing your ballot. It's either yes or no, all right, some sort of discernible mark on one or the other. You know, we always say put a check, but some people throw an X, some people throw a check mark or whatever. I think it's fairly safe to say if it's discernible and it's clear that's sufficient. Would that be? Okay. Oh, yes. Please don't initial your name as well. So again, if you were to vote yes to the surface lease, a lease may be entered into for reserve land between Canada, His Majesty, and then other certain parties, but in this case, it's going to be your economic development company. So they'll have that lease from Canada down, and that's at least my understanding of the plan, okay? Here's what your ballot's going to look like. Pretty straightforward, okay? I think there are some available for mail-in purposes, but it's kind of technically not a mail-in considering you have to do it here with Canada. But it will be a sealed ballot until the election day, or sorry, the voting day, pardon me. All right, so who can vote? Pretty straightforward. I mean, they got to be on the membership list. You got to be age of majority on the date of vote, so 18. September 18th, of course, is your vote day. And then you can't be disqualified for voting at banned elections. Now, I'm not sure if you guys' election process has mechanisms where people can be disqualified, but if they can, as far as voting privileges, then they wouldn't be permitted to vote in this either. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the case. Most don't usually, so. So you can vote one of two ways. All right, so you can do the mail-in ballot at the information session. So like I mentioned, you can do that today. Our electoral officer will seal it off, secure that until the vote date, or you can vote in person at the blue building on Reserve on the 18th between 9 and 8 p.m., okay? So as far as the threshold goes, it's a simple majority, okay? So single vote, 50% plus one of those eligible voters who cast in favor of the designation, okay? So, it's important if you feel strongly about this, then it's important that you get a lot of people out to vote. Because if nobody shows and a very few, people get their voices heard, then that's when unexpected things occur, right? So, if the nation does vote yes, there was a designation document that was sent out in the packages. The band council signs that designation document, and that's essentially the instructions to the minister to proceed to the next step, all right? And that's accompanied with the BCR as well. Now, if there's a no vote, then everything ends there, okay? So nothing gets signed, the land will not be designated, that's the end of the process there, okay? So reasons for this, I mean, it does outline it within that designation document, but essentially it's to provide for those future uses of reserve lands as set out. And then the broad categories of uses that we set out, or that the nation set out, pardon me, allow for flexibility with the types of development that Waterhen may want to do. I know there's a plan for a new service station convenience, but if you look, it doesn't take up the entirety of the lot, so maybe there's something else that would happen there in the future. So the length of the designation, so I know I've mentioned this prior, but it's important to note that although we're asking for a 99-year period, leasing terms, so, you know, if you have a gas station there, the lease with that gas station won't be 99 years. It's just the lease between, if you recall that chart, it's the lease between Canada and the third party. So this right here. We're asking that to be 99 years, okay? And the whole idea there is that it gives that flexibility to this entity. Any of these subleases, those are 5 years with a renewal, you know, like standard commercial terms. It's important to note, and I will mention it, but actually I'll pop back here, hang on. So we talked about that 99 years. It's important to note that chief and council, they can revoke that at any time too. Of course, you can't have a whole bunch of, you know, lease chains hooked up to it and then just pull the plug. Canada won't allow that because of the liabilities, but generally speaking, you know, if there's nothing going on there and there's issues with it, you guys can revoke that designation. Okay, I've seen it happen with nations where they've revoked it, you know, a number of years later, and, you know, life carries on, right? So this isn't, it's just important to note that this isn't, you know, a set in stone thing. There's always back doors out of this too. So we did talk about the specific issues, and again, this is where we talked about the nominal rent. All right, that piece in and of itself is sort of the crux of all this, and why we're going through this whole activity is that we're trying to keep our band funds with the band. Okay. So any rent paid, all right, as I mentioned, between a band-controlled entity and a third party is not payable to His Majesty. It's not Indian monies for that purpose. It's also important to note that His Majesty does not monitor the collection, you know, use or distribution of any payments received by the entity. So even though you get to hang on to it, you may think, well, Canada has some oversight. There isn't any to that. Canada has no real role. The right to access and use such monies will depend on the content of any agreement that the nation has, you know, internally or whatever have you. There's a super confusing issue that I'm really happy we don't have to deal with, and that's agriculture purposes. So it usually causes confusion. We don't have that here, so it's not applicable. But a Waterhen controlled entity will have to ensure that rent collected under the sublease is obviously put to good benefit. As exciting and opportunistic as this process is, it does, you know, have some negative consequences if you know, the wrong things occur. So an entity will need to ensure that appraisals conducted by qualified and licensed appraisers to ensure fair market rents are received. So again, that's your gas station entity. You need to ensure that that's fair market, so you have to engage a qualified appraiser, probably somebody, you know, that you're able to get out of Meadow. But nevertheless, it ensures that you're not being shorted any monies owed. The other side of this is if you're able to get a dime over fair market value, that's sufficient as well. There's no rules pertaining to that where, you know, you can only rent it for that. If you can convince somebody to pay more, so be it, right? Great. But as far as Canada's oversight is concerned, they want to make sure that you're receiving fair market rent at minimum, okay? So some of the specific reasons for your community. So council's indicated that they consider present and future generations will be able to enjoy and take advantage of the economic development opportunities. I know it's a small piece of land, but it also is an opportunity for, you know, exposure and education to that world. So, I mean, there's more than just the business side of it. The Band Council hopes and expects that the designation of these lands will encourage and provide for those various purposes. They think that it will foster economic, social, cultural governance development, so it will give more money for those purposes, allowing opportunities for economic self-reliance to occur, and it does create some employment training, business opportunities. I mean, it all starts with the single step, right? So, so at this time, just to go to your point, sir, there's no immediate agreements, which we understand are in place. We don't know necessarily, any third-party agreements. There's just your economic development company. So there's no outsiders, so to speak, involved at this point. So the band will have the flexibility to plan and develop the economic potential of that land, and they're better able to take advantage of opportunities for development of land when they arise. Okay, so business happens fast. With this in place, it allows leadership to jockey and position as they need, within, of course, the parameters that you guys have given them. So environment, here's another key piece. So as part of any head lease or any sublease, there's a requirement for all parties to follow all applicable environmental laws in force. Okay, so it's not a free-for-all in these lands. There needs to be, strict compliance with environmental laws, and that safeguards the land, now and into the future. With these gas service stations, you run into issues with spillage and such. And my experience with this is that Canada has taken an exceptionally hard line with respect to getting the land back to where it was, regardless of expenditure to the nation or whatever have you. So you do have that in place. So, any environmental concerns, there's supposed to be some pretty stringent measures in place to ensure that any sort of spillage or anything like that is dealt with immediately. So as far as the summary goes, just to sort of bring it all back again. So again, the land's not being sold. Okay, it remains reserved land pursuant to your treaty. The term of the designation is 99 years. Okay, again, that won't be for your subleases. The land with respect is Lot 6. Hopefully you guys have that opportunity to know exactly where that is. And again, very strict purposes. Only the commercial retail, including gas service station, convenience store, and institutional, educational, and recreational purposes. Okay, so it seems like a lot, but I mean, it does narrow it down a bit. So. As far as contact information, so Joyce Woolheather's here. She's the electoral officer. There's some of her contact. I'm not sure is that fax number still active? Or, no? Okay, don't fax the number. Nobody will answer it. But the email and phone number, and then Judy Abraham, right there. Yeah. So she's here as well, the deputy. So they work as a team on this, and any questions you may have or any issues with voting or info or packages, they're the folks to get in touch with. Okay. Now would be a great time if you have questions or comments or anything. Like the entities? Yeah, I can, yeah. If this remote works. Hey, Devin, can you move it back to that flow chart? Yeah, it's not working. Okay. This one here?
Where you said if that land could be used, there was a thing that said where the land could be used for a store, a gas station, educational, that frame you had. I want to see what that Because unless you're planning on building a school right on that spot, obviously that word shouldn't be in there, or the other one either. So I'm just wondering why you mention it while you're doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll back it up here. So one of the things that happens is you get remote facilities, and they're just, small commercial spaces that some of the education institutes will just have for lack of a better way to put it, a satellite office type thing. We've seen that before, and that's sort of the discussion around that. There's no expectation that you're going to build the school there or anything. It was just strictly for, not closing the door on some of those school divisions that may rent a space there down the road.
Well, one of the things that my concern is, you guys are pulling out all these deals right now. We don't have a school right now that needs to be built. Where are kids going to go to school next year? In trailers? Moldy trailers? Like, that's what usually happens with that stuff. And the other thing I was mentioning to Blair was with this cows and plows, like they were trying to sneak in things and not talk about them. When they came to our gym and spoke back in May, they were saying, oh, it's a great deal and this and that, but they didn't mention that there was a clause in there that stated if we took that money, that after that, nothing, period. Like, I look at that and I'm going, why? Are they getting back on their boats and leaving or what? Because, you're basically trying to rip us off. And it seems like every time they have a deal for us, that's exactly what happens. And why are we leasing them anything for $1?
I don't think this is about health.
Oh, that's standard rate? Who's standard?
I'm not sure I'm following, to be honest. I think it may be confused as to who's doing the leasing there. The nation's entity is the one paying the dollar upwards to Canada, and then they're able to keep any of the money that they receive from subleasing it off.
And you mentioned that part of that land where this stuff is going on, part of that belongs to the government. How is that? If that's supposed to be our land, isn't that?
Oh, as far as what's there right now? Yeah, I don't know about that. Like as far as a store being on provincial lands and half on reserve lands, I don't know. The store's probably been there forever, and unfortunately there wasn't maybe as much of an emphasis on locations and surveying things maybe when they put it there. I don't know. It's
because for me it's
speculating.
It's basically all of a sudden they're coming up with all these, oh, we want to make a deal here, make a deal there. Well, they haven't even lived up to their word on anything yet. They always say they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and they don't do it. Look at the housing on our reserve, man.
Yeah.
Like, go live there for a while. There's black mold in those houses. I was there with Darcy when Darcy was doing the work on the houses. I went into all those houses. I seen black mold. I seen it. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And they get away with this.
Yeah. And I mean, so part of the reason why that happens is lack of funding, right? I mean, there's not enough to go around, and they feed you little bits off the table, right? The idea in these situations is that you're trying to find ways to raise capital, to raise funds, to address those type of things. Now, whether or not leadership does that, well, that's outside of my role here. But we have been asked to assist in creating an opportunity, creating sort of a landscape where that could happen, and that's essentially what this is. Now, as far as your housing, your school situation. I would say those are different fronts that you're, fighting, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it's the same group of people. We have to go to these people for funding, for education, for this, for that. It's the same group of people. And it seems like they're always picking here, picking there. Always, it's like a little game, a little shell game going on, and we end up losing. But what we're losing is our future, our children, our grandchildren. What are they going to have? Why hasn't anybody done anything about all this you got these deals, you're talking about this deal, that $5 thing, you're talking about the land claims, you're talking about this, and this is the same group of people we have to talk to. Blaine or whoever's has to talk to these people, but it's always a little shell game. They're all, oh, you can have this, but you can't have this. Well, hey, man, then you get nothing, because for me, it's like no to any deal they got, period, because that's what I wrote first, no.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to deal fairly with our people, why should we deal with you at all?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that's 100% your right to do that. I mean, that's the whole benefit of this process, is that, you know, if you have angst and you have, you know, anxiety about whether or not this is for the good in the long run, you have your ability to say no, you know, and that's, you know, just the same as somebody else can say, yes, I believe in this, right? So I'd love to be able to talk or speak to you about some of those issues, because I'm sure I can tell they're, you know, very important to you, but I really know nothing about them. So I can't, unfortunately, you know, give you any insight there. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that it's the same group of people, Ottawa, wanting to make all these deals, but they're not living up to it. Like, if we were talking cows and plows, then we're talking land claims, then we're talking that $5 thing, and now they're coming here with this deal. It's like one thing after another. All of a sudden you want to make deals. Well, you know what? Economically speaking, and I understand economics, I've studied a lot more than most. When the issues that are plaguing our reserves right now, you got an 80% drug rate, addiction rate on all reserves, man. You hang $20,000 in front of somebody with an addiction, they're gonna jump all over it. So basically lowballing them.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been getting away with doing.
Yeah, as far as that process goes, there's a lot more nuance to that than I think I can probably speak to.
Well, I know very well what goes on with the gang system, the drugs and all that. I was a part of that life. I ran this province for a few years, so I know how it works. You know, I know what's behind it. That's why I walked away from that life, is because they're just murdering people, keeping people in poverty and addiction. And this is what is the biggest problem on our reserves. How can we move past that without dealing with that? We have to deal with core issues, man. Not go and making deals with these people who are still ripping us off here and there. It's got to be all looked at one time. And as far as this deal or any other deal, I say no, period. Because if you're not going to deal with our people fairly, why are we dealing with them at all?
Yeah, fair. That's fair. I appreciate your comment.
I lost a kid in this shit, and it pisses me off that more people, our children, are fucking being turned into drug addicts, and nobody's addressing this shit. You know what? It affects so many people. You come into this city, go downtown, and have a look around. See how many homeless people are in this city.
Yeah.
And look, I got lots of cousins out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that was done deliberately. Over 20 years ago when they started the gang system in 1997, I know I was there. You know, I was one of the main guys, and I saw what was going on, and I walked away from it. This is why I said these guys are going around making deals behind people's backs. Oh, this is a great deal, this is a great deal. Well, no, let's put this all out on the table. It's Ottawa behind most of this shit. You know, it's got to be addressed. And if our people and if our leaders aren't going to step up, then maybe they should step out of the way and put somebody in place who will. Because it's getting sickening when our children are dying. And it pisses me off when I see this going on and nobody's doing anything about it. And you're still making deals with these people. It's just disgusting.
I guess I'll try to address that. This is not something like what you think it is. We're just trying to provide a new store that provides an essential service to our community. That's all we're trying to do. The current store right now, the location where it's at, it's off reserve. We pay a lease fee to the province. We want to have it in our reserve where we could have economic benefits. We could have entrepreneurs who want to open a restaurant in that location, provide more economic growth to the community. We're not trying to sign any deals or sign any treaties away.
If you're a representative of the people, you're voted in by the people, you should have their best interest. And part of that best interest is making sure that our people, our children and our grandchildren are healthy.
I agree. That's why we brought this to you guys to vote on. We're not trying to pull anything over your guys' heads or nothing. We're being upfront. We're bringing up the new story here, the land designation. We want you guys to vote on it.
Who's we? You?
All of us, the community. That's
Well,
where
my point is, if our people are unhealthy, when is that going to be? That needs to be looked at, because all these deals don't mean anything if they're going to be dead in 20 years. Where are our people going to be in 10, 15, 20 years? Where are our children? Where are their futures? They're going to live on welfare and do shit?
and that's why we gotta build our businesses so we have more job opportunities for our people.
Well, if they want to have job opportunities, maybe they should address the main issues on our reserves, and that's part of being chief and council as well, because there is look at how much addiction there is on that reserve, man. I was there. I went and I looked and I was like, holy crap, I couldn't believe what was going on up there. And I went to a lot of reserves when I was up north for that 4 years.
Yeah, I agree, like there's a lot of personal development that needs to take place. That's why we took back our health, so we could start building that capacity and helping our people get healthy. It's not just chief and council, like everybody plays a role. We all have a relative that's addicted to something. As members, we all got to step up and talk to our people, try to get them off. If we don't, drug dealers will always be there if we don't address the issue of the addiction.
Well, they can't be there if you tell them straight, if you want to sell drugs on this reserve, get off of it. Yeah, kick them out of, no, don't give them a house, don't give them jack. And if any of their relatives are doing it, kick them out too, man. That's the only way you're going to clean it up. I know, I was there, man. I helped clean up Regina. I helped clean up Saskatoon. I helped clean up Meadow Lake when I was there. When I went to a meeting, I only seen 2 visible natives. By the time I left, after 3 years of a room with 31 people, 29 of them were native, and they were all clean, and they got their kids back, you know, and started helping them. But nobody's got it in their heart to go and do that. I didn't do it for money. I did it because I want to see that done. You know, and we all got to, you know, work together and stick together. We're going to make a, you know, if we're going to have a healthy, you know, country, what about our people? Our people are the main people of this country. Nobody's doing anything about that. It all needs to be addressed. Not sneaking around making deals. Oh, well, we'll give you this money. With it, when they have addictions, they're going to jump all over that stuff. You know, it's a game. It all needs to be addressed.
Yeah, those guys stick to the topic at hand, which is the land designation. There's going to be future meetings on the land claims
Well,
coming up.
mine on this is straight no, period.
Okay.
Hi, Kelly Fiddler, the son of Robert and Sandra Fiddler. So many of you know them back home, and just wanted to say a few things. So I don't know if you can. I wanted to make sure that well, I guess first and foremost, I did agree about the uses. This is very, very general. It would be good to have some solid planning on the use of this commercial land, because in previous council, we really talked about the possibility of using it for forestry, that sort of thing. And we do need to move a lot of our business onto First Nation land, because the government is really coming after every revenue, especially today, because they're broke right now, and they're looking, even if you attend a meeting and get honorarium, they're gonna try and get that on your tax return now. So we gotta really start protecting ourselves in terms of our businesses. So I think, yeah, so I'd like to see a little bit of a stronger, this is very institutional. You did kind of comment it already, but I think, you know, it'd be nice to hear what your vision is for those commercial lands. And stick to commercial, because I do agree, if we can, you know, get some offices up there and rent to whoever, you know, whoever needs it, you know, that we need to gain that revenue. So another question I have, going to the current capital account, you know, it seems very hard to access that money. And also, I don't know if we're getting interest on that money on the capital trust account, or if it's just, you know, because a lot of that comes from any of the leases, like, I don't know if SAS Power or Tel pay anything, but you see when I get my phone bill or whatever, it always says City of Saskatoon levy, or right now Martinsville levy. And why aren't our communities getting that from SaskTel, right? And so, you know, especially when they're using our lines on reserve, and, you know, but looking at that capital account, and also there wasn't really any mention about the lease risk, and there always is a bit of risk to those lands because we're using them to access loans, right? And so there could be a risk. And is there a risk in losing those lands if a business fails, like if the store goes under and the bank wants to get the money? And, you know, so I'm just, I think the risk is low, but it's still a risk. So I don't know what the legality of that is. Maybe.
Yeah, no, and we've run into this situation. So as far as I know, at this point, there's no financial plan or anything. You know, there's no lending that they're trying to get off of that or anything. Usually on these finances, they're difficult because the bank is exactly aware of that, right? And the ability to enforce on reserve. The Indian Act does provide certain protections, you know, as far as search and seizure and taxation. So what ends up usually happening on that is we've seen nations give what they call Section 89 waivers, essentially saying you can come onto reserve and take X, Y, Z. So maybe the business has some capital assets. That's what they would be able to come on, and that's that collateral, so the bank has some security to lend you. And other times, nations will have land codes in place, and those will dictate some of the financing and the lending. But ultimately, you're right, Kelly, in that it's difficult, and getting leasehold financing is really what that is risky to a degree for the banks, and they're aware of that. So, you know, this isn't as if chief and council are going to be able to just walk into any bank somewhere and get, you know, a loan to do development. There's a lot of legwork there, and you'll have to have somebody, you know, an institution that probably has a relationship with you, kind of knows the ins and outs of your nation, because ultimately, you know, there's high risk there too. So.
Okay, just two quick ones. So, and this stems back from when I started this. Do we need commercial status to start this store? Or can we get going whenever we're ready? You know, and you know, and then the second thing is, how long is this going to take to implement this? If it goes through election process, and how long is the designation process after that, I guess?
Sure, yeah, so let's say, you know, everything is a yes on the 18th. Council proceeds to advise the minister that they want to proceed with the head lease. That's, you know, in a 1 year window. I mean, a lot of the delay is sorry, Joyce, but is Canada, right? So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. There's only so many of them there. I mean, we work closely with them. I'm definitely not here on behalf of Canada, but we do have a close relationship, and there's only so many of them. So it takes 12 months usually to get that head lease in place. Yeah. So.
And then once a head lease is in place, then that's when we would look into financing. And the main area that we were going to look at was Corp PF, and even that does take quite some time too, Corp PF. So we can get grant monies up to 30% of what the total project costs are. In order to access that, we do need a land designation in place to access those grant dollars. Typically, how the financing looks is that the nation would put in 10%. We would get 30% from the Corp PF if it does go through and we're approved. And then the other 60% will be financed.
Well, it just seems like the programs in government are forcing you to have this commercial land designation. Hello? Okay. It just seems like the government is forcing you to have this commercial land designation, or else we don't get our store. And I'm just questioning why do we have to adhere to that? That seems wrong to me. We've had the reserve for, since 1920, right? So, and why are they pushing this now? And we could have had a new store like 20 years ago when we actually needed it. So, I don't know. That's the question I had. Why are we waiting? And what happens if they say no? And then we got to wait another little while. So I'm just wondering, is there a way we can just push ahead on our own and just build this thing? And, I don't know. It just seems like we're winning everything in the courts. So maybe somebody needs to step up and challenge that while we're working on the process. Anyway, just a comment.
Yeah, I can't really tell you who they are, but there is some issues with that about, starting projects before, and it is happening in the province, and it, is creating quite a mess. So it's hard to remove interest in order to move it into, get the head lease and everything moving if there's already interest attached to it. And I don't necessarily know who or what you plan to put there, if there's somebody specific, or if there's, as far as I know, this is the extent of the plans and what you have in front of you. So.
I think we have a question over here, and
Sure.
then we have one online. So.
I just wanted to say, one of the members was saying that they found a angle iron and a rebar past the store, so that whoever did that survey there to the store, I don't think they did it right. Unless somebody can look into that, where that angle iron and that rebar is. Maybe that store is in the reserve. So I just say, there, it's good.
Okay, thank you. We'll definitely wrote that down, and we'll look into it.
Yeah, who knows who surveyed it, right? Who knows when it happened?
We just have somebody online that has a question. Yeah. There we go.
Hello,
Okay,
hello.
Okay,
Can you
Dustin.
hear me? You can, okay,
Yeah, we
perfect.
can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. I was downtown when I got this meeting invite, so I just want to say thank you for hosting this meeting. I'm Dustin Ross Fiddler, and to those who I don't know there, my great-grandparents are the late Fred Martel and Joe Fiddler, and I'm joining in from Toronto right now. So one of the things I just want to kind of get my head around here is that I know under the Indian Act that through the designation process, we're going to have to surrender the land. I know that the wording on surrender isn't as strong as they would like us to believe. But if Waterhen ever goes independent and starts working on our own land laws and making our own laws for our nation, how does this vote impact that? Will we have our own laws as Waterhen Lake First Nation with a tract of land that's going to be subtracted from that and put aside, or is that something we can incorporate and bring back into our ownership of our lands when that happens?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So that would be your, probably what you'd call a land code, so your land law. When we put those together, ultimately that becomes the mechanism by which the nation is able to administer its lands. The designation process will still be reflective of that. So I mean, of course, you draft it in a sense that it's compliant. But ultimately, yeah, you can deal with both of those within the land law. And, you know, like some of them are fairly detailed and they get right into, you know, zoning and future use planning, and then some, you know, maybe aren't as detailed and only deal with just simple possession or simple leasing. So, yeah, no, but that's a great question, because ultimately that's sort of the next step after the land code, or sorry, the land designation piece. So.
So the short answer is if we have our own own land code, then the designation doesn't pertain anymore. Simple as that.
No, the designation is still in place. And, you know, until such time as the nation revokes it.
Yeah.
But it would be dealt with within your land code, so you wouldn't just, you know, not capture that. Because it's in place, so you want to be able to have some rules and regs around it. So our land codes generally include all that information, and it usually doesn't have any real effect on the existing. It's only when you're turning fee simple land into reserve land is really where you run into some issues. Yeah.
Okay, Alex has a couple of questions online that she will ask for
Sure.
the online people.
The gentleman over here also has the mic too. Yep.
Okay, so it's not really listed as a full question, but it's pros and cons, question mark. How is this beneficial for our people, and what are the probable conflicts or perceivable difficulties? I know you've covered this a little bit, but if you wanted to go in more detail or bring up anything else that maybe wasn't covered.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the nature of our practice at our shop is we're very focused on economic development. There's other lawyers who focus on other areas, but ours is, you know, creating business, doing economics for nations. As far as the benefits go, I mean, to me, you have all the benefit in the sense that you're now able to, you know, attract business, you can control business, you're able to obtain revenues, you know, and then there's all the secondary pieces like, you know, the training, job opportunities, those type of things. You know, as far as complications go, I would say that in my experience, they're no different than any normal commercial leasing relationship. It's those type of issues that pop up is usually somebody doesn't pay rent, you know, so then you got to evict them, and, you know, basically the landlord role. To me, those are a lot of the conflicts. So kind of down the road and more practical day-to-day stuff. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay. I think the store is a great idea. Like, I grew up in Waterhen in the 60s and 70s, and I've seen a number of non-native people who leased the store out, and there was a number of problems that came with, even deaths that came with that, like selling antifreeze to Native people and killing them. I knew these people, I still know their families on a reserve. And to see that store when I go down, it's embarrassing. When I was there for the powwow, and we go in there, and I should put tripped in the aisle. I'm glad for having a store. There's only two concerns that I have: security and fire. We just lost the school. Do we have plans to have a fire station that's fully functional? Is it going to be on a commercial property? Where is it going to be located? And the security. There's been a lot of B&Es at the stores out of sight, and I know the windows will probably have to roll it, but there's ways around all of that if you don't have proper security. And where's the security coming from? If we're going to have businesses on commercial land coming in, we're going to have to say, okay, we have our firewalls fully functional and ready to go if anything happens. To get these people to come to the reserve, like you're talking about, some offices, the reserve offices that are in Meadow Lake, based in Meadow Lake, coming down, and maybe educate like the TEP programs and all that coming down and functioning in their office or the programs out of there. But we have to basically say, where's our fire hall? You know, is it functional? And who's going to be there? Those are the kind of questions we have to look at. We just lost our school. And there was awful lot of memories for myself and everybody else on that reserve. And so, yeah, the store where it is, we're just going through the steps that need to be done. I understand that, and I think it's a great idea. The area, I'm not sure if you did your due diligence on the water table and the flow and everything because that area right there, right from the field road all the way into the pump house, that's all water. That was all water downflow from where the arena is and the new section is. It all came down through there from the fields. So you're just going to have to, I imagine you guys did that already, but the main thing is fire protection and security. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea. But before you do anything, I'd just like to understand, are we having, yeah, it's all right. We always said for a number of years we have a functional fire truck until there's a fire and there's no battery or there's no water or you can't get a hold of anybody that can come in to put the fire out, basically. We don't know first responders or the actual volunteer fire department. And same with security. Security in the old store was, they had their own family members breaking into the store and they're the security that's supposed to be watching them. It's like, it's pretty amazing if you actually look at it, but are we going at an outside security once it gets to a point where you have enough commercial business there on that property? Are we going to an outside security firm, or how are we going about that? Because myself, if I was to go and open an office there, first things I want to know is what is my fire protection if we had something of value there, and along with security.
Yeah, go ahead, Chief.
As far as the fire hall goes, currently we do have an application with the capital projects, and we got to put in 50% of the cost for the hall and the truck. And right now we're working through that. We're getting some plans designed by, I think it's Prakash out of PA. Same guys that did these plans for the new fire hall. So that's the capital. If you look on Canada's capital projects, you'll see the list of all our capital projects, and the fire hall's in there, along with the new school. And right now we did order 17 portables, brand new ones, no mold in them. There'll be new units that'll be used for the temporary school until we get that new school built. And we got, I guess, the minister gave us their word that we'd have that up in 3 years. So as far as security, this design doesn't really show like the exterior of it. We kind of built it where all the windows are way up above, over 10 feet. And to be a steel building, slab on grade, so you can dig your way out like the old store people are breaking into the crawl space. You can dig your way through. We're trying to make it more secure, but I think Devin will adjust the security measures for the new store going forward.
Yeah, it is true. We've had several break-ins, and it has been pretty heartbreaking and hard on our management. Unfortunately, it does happen. But the good news is, over the past 2 years, the store has been profitable, and it does show in the financial statements, even with the break-ins. So We did speak to, well, actually our manager, she spoke to leadership after the last break-in, because we did go back several times to see if we could get some sort of additional support. Because we didn't think that we would be able to afford the security on our own for the store. If we were to provide security on our own, we wouldn't be profitable, because all of that profit that we had budgeted for the year would go towards wages. So right now we're exploring that right now. Currently we do have some temporary security at the store since our last break-in. But we are putting together our budget for the security for the year. We would not be able to afford an outside security team. But the plan is to employ people directly from the store. And there had been a couple of security programs in the community, and we wanted to access a couple of people who did take those programs. And then I did want to also, somebody else earlier asked a little bit about our vision, and I wanted to address that too. What is our vision for that specific lot? So I'll talk a little bit more about my vision. These plans were actually already in place, and Kelly Fiddler, when he was the CEO prior to me coming in, he worked on these plans with council and like for the store. So these were already in place before I got here. It had been a really long process to get to this point of like actually bringing this to vote. Sorry, Canada, it does take a little bit longer. And so I've been really working towards this for the past couple of years, but other things obviously take priority. So now we've made this our priority for this year to get this done. We do know that we might need to upgrade our plans a little bit, and we will be open to feedback. So it could take about 2 years until, like from now, if it's a yes, it could take 2 years to actually get it to being built. What else? Oh yeah, the vision for the lot itself. So my vision for this is to build a community business center where we can have different office spaces and a restaurant and other facilities so that our people who are entrepreneurs, because we've run several, actually 2 entrepreneurship programs for the last 2 years, the main problem for them is there's no facilities for them to rent, to be able to have a restaurant, and they don't have the capital to finance a building. So if we provided a space for those facilities, then we can lease and rent those spaces in the future. But that's just an idea at this point, and we haven't created the concrete plans for that yet. So that's our vision for the future. And I'm sure there's going to be more planning opportunities in the near future to really decide what we're going to be doing with that little lot of land. Because keep in mind, it's not a lot of land, right? Lot 6 is pretty small. It's just kind of behind the townhouse. So there's really only so much you can do with that bit of land. I don't know if you want to
Hire some Jehovah's Witnesses and do it.
do you want to
Yeah, further to Devin's comments, we do want to build like you said, our forestry office. We wanted to have it on reserve. Right now it's in Meadow Lake, but we have an office in our band office, which is part of the fire. So we have them working out of their home right now. Yeah, just like I guess one of the pros too is to stop like these some of our band members who make up these pop-up businesses, and then they start taking large pieces of land in the reserve to like put up a shop, which they never follow through with, and it kind of caused like an environmental risk too, with like water oils and all that being spilt in the land. So this kind of gives us more control of having a commercial base where they could maybe put a shop there and stuff like that.
Yeah, Blaine, one thing I wanted to say was we were just talking about
The one thing you were just talking about there, the
oil on the water and stuff. I don't understand why, if we're drinking out of that water on that lake, why you would allow so many boats on there at a time. Like, why don't you guys, like, I know tons of groups that are, these old hippie groups and stuff, they go out kayaking and go out canoeing and, rent that M&N out there, rent to those people. They don't pollute anything, they look after nature, like, instead of, you got people out there with boats. I've been there, I've sat and watched them, like, holy crap, man, even when the water was low, I'm like, I remember when the water was way out there that one time. I couldn't believe how low the water got. Sometimes it's up high, which is great because there's, lots for the kids to go swimming, not having to walk out 100 yards to go to where there's water. Like, that water needs to be looked after, that lake. And I remember back when they were trying to sell Flotten, I'm going, why would you sell Flotten? Doesn't it run into Waterhen? I mean, people start dumping shit in there, it's going to pollute our water. And if they do it in the wintertime, it won't be noticeable till spring. And by then, the damage is done. I got to be aware of who we're selling to or who we're doing business with, man. The future of our children, our grandchildren depend on that.
I'm kind of going for yes, only because, sorry I don't look over there, I'm kind of focusing on what I'm saying. The only reason why I'm saying yes is because that little area could be turned into something of, like, how Jasper in the mountains looks, that little area there, and, little KFC here, little businesses, right? But not KFC there. But like places like a real mechanical place, like where people can bring their cars to wash them or get them worked on, mechanics, right? And not just a gas station, not just a convenience store, like, like a real, like a little mini mall to take up that entire area, to make that place a resort magnet. Money magnet, When I was living in Waterhen, I'd come up with so many beautiful, wicked ideas, and, get shunned down, but never mind that. Anyways, like, to turn this into a resort would be a beautiful idea. When I lived on the reserve, I didn't have a job. I'd do everything for a job. Like, I'd even do jobs for free. I'd go around putting up Christmas lights for free, doing people's lawns for free, leveling out their driveways for free, like to try to get myself noticed, like even going on job sites, like, when they're putting up a house, I work for free. And, turn that place into a resort, like, turn it beautiful. Don't do a half-assed job where, it's like, gravel road and making all this dust. People want to sit there and have a cup of coffee and, no dust when people are pulling out, And another thing, I wish when I was on my reserve, I wish I was pointed in a better direction than stupid effing construction and stupid effing carpentry. Sorry for knocking it down. There should be a place for, like, an equal place at equal time every single year for every single band member on reserve to have an opportunity to go to a class for political science. That's what we need. We need to be more political aware about, like, the finances of the company or country, the economy, and how Waterhen plays an important role, even though it's a small role. We're selling wood to China, who cares? Still money, like, we're this cog, and we should always cherish that cog. That's us.
Thanks, Matthew. Kelly?
You want to respond, or?
Yeah, like, I do agree. We gotta push our youth more into different educational opportunities besides construction and trades. Just right now, it's that's kind of at the demand right now with the economies, trades, and I guess nursing too is another aspect we gotta address. We have a shortage of nurses, and we're always open to new ideas. We're not going to turn nothing away.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Kelly Fiddler again. So I did just build a gas station at Muscadet, and I was working with McCurcher on that. So the firm on commercial activities is excellent. You know, Dusty, Aaron Starr, some of the top commercial lawyers and Indigenous lawyers in Canada. So I'm happy you engaged them to do this work. So my comment, the lands were already commercially designated, which made it a really fast process to, well, it still took 3 years of planning, but and another year and a half to build, but, well, maybe 3 years total, but still, you know, it sped things up, so I think it makes it easier to do these commercial builds, but the reason I'm asking about building it sooner is because not only that project, but the current project I'm working on, a big $6 million gallery right now, and the cost of building is skyrocketing, and 2-3 years away, who knows what that thing's gonna cost, you know, so I get worried when I think about how long things are taking. And even if we would have built this before COVID, it probably would have cost half the price, right? And so that's just my comment. Is I like the commercial process, and I didn't say anything, but I just got my master's in business just a few months ago. So I'm working on all these different projects, and I see these things with other bands, and hopefully, so I think this process will be good for the project and other projects in the future. So that's just what I wanted to say. And there's a lot of awesome comments here. So that tells me you need to keep engaging the off-reserve community, you know, in all these different projects. So, and I encourage everyone here to, you know, to have the courage to speak out and speak up, whatever it is on your ideas or your feedback to council. Because it helps. It helps to bring all our ideas that from living in the city for, you know, 30-some years, we see all these different things going on, and we think, why can't our community have these things too? So I hope you can give your feedback. I encourage you to keep talking, and if you want. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. We have Alex here taking notes too, so we're recording everything, and we're being recorded online also, so we are taking all your input, and we take it seriously. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more final questions before we ask Joyce to come up to talk a little bit about the voting process? I think he has a quick question. Are most of the councillors here? Unfortunately, just Chief Blaine is here because everybody is at the
Summer Games right
Summer
now.
Games, yeah.
In LaRange. I just left her at 2:30 to try to make this meeting, so.
Hi,
Yeah.
my name is Annabelle Evans. I've been listening to what everybody's been saying here, and I really, really agree with what they're saying. I was down in the reserve about 3 months ago, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And I think the concept of creating something that would be beneficial for the reserve and for the people will give people some pride to have something. And I think the youth needs something. I think that the idea of having a store, a grocery store, will it be a grocery store like that people can buy everything like, it's not going to just be one of those little stores like it's,
From what I
you can
understand.
buy
yeah.
everything?
Yeah, from what I understand.
Yeah,
it's like-
that, I think
yeah.
that's an excellent idea, and I think if you can bring in more business, I think you guys got my vote. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, we'll invite Joyce up to come and speak about the voting process.
Okay, thanks very much for listening. Appreciate it. It's on, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Thank you, Chief, for your opening remarks. So as mentioned, my name is Joyce Woolheather, and I work for Indigenous Services Canada, and I have been appointed as your electoral officer for this designation vote. My role is to conduct the vote as set out in the Indian referendum regulations, and I will briefly go over the voting process and how to fill out the mail-in ballot. So members who are 18 years of age or older, as of September the 18th, 2024, the day of the vote, are eligible to vote on this designation. The notice of vote and the voters list were posted at the Band Office Number 1 and Band Office Number 2 sub-office on July 30th. If you find that a voter has been omitted from the list, incorrectly listed, or that a person not qualified to vote is on the list, please let myself or the membership clerk know, and we will follow up on amending the voters list if required. So there are actually 3 methods of voting. You may vote by using the mail-in ballot envelope. You can vote tonight at the information session or any other information session, or you may vote in person on the poll on the day of the vote. The polling station is at the Blue Building on Waterhen First Nation on September the 18th, and it will begin at 9 in the morning and close at 8 p.m. You may only vote once. So we do have information packages here tonight, which I think most people did receive. If you do require an information package or know somebody who does want one, you can contact Judy Abraham, who is the Deputy Electoral Officer, or myself, and we will ensure that they do get a package. So if you would like to vote using the mail-in ballot package, what you would do is fill out the statutory declaration, which is on this envelope. This is what your ballot looks like. So you will put X, check mark, some other mark in either the yes or no box without identifying yourself in any way. So no initials, no name. Fold it up, put it in the statutory declaration envelope. And on this envelope, we do ask for your name and either your date of birth or your status number. And that is so that we keep track of who has voted, but not how you have voted. And this ensures that somebody can only vote once. It's very important that the voter signs it and that you have your signature witnessed by somebody 18 years of age or older. You'll insert it in here, and if you want to mail it, there is an envelope, postage paid, to return to myself. I work out of the Regina office. So if you do mail it, I encourage you to mail it as soon as possible because the mail can be unpredictable and we don't know when we'll get it. I have to have all the ballots in to myself by the close of the vote, 8 p.m. on September the 18th. If any are received after that, I void them out, they're never opened, and then I just hold them for 60 days, and after that, they are destroyed. Yes, you can. So, as I said, even though your name is on here, I never look to see how you voted. So when the poll closes at 8 p.m. on September the 18th, that's when these are opened. We take them out without ever looking at the name, and then they're inserted into the ballot box. After all of them are inserted into the ballot box, that's when I open the ballot box to do the count. So your vote is always confidential. So if you would like to vote in person, you'll come and you'll check in. The vote is at the Waterhen First Nation in the blue building. Starts at 9 in the morning until 8 p.m. So you'll check in with the deputy, which is Judy Abraham. She'll check off your name on the list, and we'll hand you your ballot. You'll go behind a polling station to vote. The vote is conducted by secret ballot, and you cannot vote by proxy, which means someone else cannot vote for you. If you receive a ballot that is improperly printed, stained, or if you mismark your ballot, you can request a new ballot from either myself or the deputy. The original ballot will be marked void and it will not be counted. If you need assistance in the polling station, you can also request that from either myself or from Judy. The ballots will be counted right after the poll closes at 8 p.m. The count can be viewed by anybody from the First Nation, and it will be held in the blue building. So I will open the ballot box, inspect each ballot, and other than those rejected or voided will be shown to those in attendance. Voided are not opened or counted, and rejected ballots cannot be shown as the voter may be identified. So a ballot will be considered rejected if the intent of the voter is not clear, so you've marked both the yes and no box, or you have identified yourself in any way, anywhere on the ballot. So if you put your initials on there or your name, I will reject it. A number of individuals will have tally sheets to ensure the count is accurate, and we'll also place a large tally sheet on the wall so that everybody in attendance can see how the count is proceeding. As Dusty mentioned, this is a simple majority vote. So to consider this a yes vote, 50% plus 1 of those who vote must vote yes. So if 200 people vote, we would need 101 yes votes for this vote to be successful. There is a review procedure. So an elector can request a review of the referendum by the minister if they believe that there was a contravention of the Indian referendum regulations that may affect the results, or there was a corrupt practice in place regarding the vote. A request for the review of the referendum shall be made by forwarding the request to the minister by registered mail addressed to the Assistant Deputy Minister within 7 days after the vote. It must be accompanied by a declaration containing the grounds for requesting the review and any other relevant information. So if you would like further information about the review procedure, you can refer to the Indian referendum regulations. So if you would like to vote tonight, I do have extra ballots here as well as packages. So we're just sitting at this table, so please come and see us and we'll give you your ballot. Are there any questions? Yes?
Just for the closing questions here. This is like something that's probably on the back of everybody's mind. Like, you know, like if these commercials entities, you know, come and buy this land here or rent it, like is Waterhen gonna get this land? Like, as far as like you know, to me, it's like a 50-50. It could be Waterhen, it could be some foreign entity, could be anybody.
No, it's Waterhen. The Waterhen members, for Waterhen members, and the Waterhen Active Corp will handle the lease agreements for each member.
Oh, so it's just going to be for Waterhen?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the clarity. Like, you know, because I don't know, the news just got me over the top.
Are there any questions about the voting process? All right, well, if you do think of one, I'll just be sitting at the table there, so please come and talk to me. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think our information session is completed now. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come out and voice your concerns and your opinions. They're well received. We'll jot them down and we'll keep them in mind. And if you're going to vote tonight, good luck. With that, I hope everybody has a good evening and enjoy yourselves. Goodbye.